Well, I've only seen a few horrifying vampire flicks like Dracula and maybe one or two more and what have you. But I've recently experienced a real terrifying Dracula type flick in Renfield, now which is now streaming on Peacock after being in theaters when it came out this past April, and it will become the Prime Video later on this year. But is this recent vampire flick worth checking out for a bloody good time? Or is this one vampire flick that has been up more than it can chew? Find out right now in this spoiler-free review. Big D's Entertainment Rankings and Reviews. So greetings, my fellow YouTubers, and welcome to Big D's Entertainment Rankings and Reviews. My name is Dual, better known to as the Big D, and this time around I bring to you a spoiler-free review of the 2023 comedy horror flick Renfield, released by Universal, directed and produced by Chris McKay. Written by Ryan Ridley from a story by Robert Kirkman, who also served as producer. And this film is inspired by characters from Bram Stoker's 1897 novel known as Dracula, of course. The film stars Nicholas Hoult in the title role, along with Awkwafina, Ben Schwartz, Shohreh, Aghdashloo, Brandon Scott Jones, Adrian Martinez, and Nicolas Cage as, well, Dracula. So, now the film tells the story of a character, Renfield, in the classic monster universe, which apparently entered development hell after the big disappointment of the Mummy remake of 2017. Now, Dexter Fletcher was originally announced as director, but eventually McKay came along. And I'm going to say this film did okay, but it didn't quite do too well. So anyway, despite the film did get a little bit of mixed response and why this film didn't do too well at the box office. But now let's get into just a little bit of the story. It starts in the early 20th century, and Transylvanian vampire Count Dracula meets English lawyer R.M. Renfield. He hopes to broker a deal for some land, and after proving to be a useful assistant, he ends up becoming Dracula's familiar, allowing him to be immortal and gain super strength and speed when he consumes bugs. And 9 years later, he has grown weary and exhausted of bringing victims to Dracula as well as the latter's abuse. Apparently, they've had a close call with vampire hunters who almost killed the Count, so the duo moves to New Orleans to recuperate. And Renfield discovers a 12-step self-help group for people in codependent relationships and plans to hunt out the group's abusive lovers so he can give them to Dracula to feast on without feeling remorse. By following one to a warehouse with stolen drugs, Renfield is confronted by several criminals before they are all attacked by an assassin hired by the rival Lobo crime family. Now that's all the story I'm going to give to you. So I'm going to go ahead and give you my thoughts on Renfield. Well, I will say that since critics criticize the screenplay and story, I'm going to say that the story is fine and what have you. It may not be great, but it's still good though. Now, also for its cast, I think Nicholas Hoult was really good as Renfield, very good, and Nicolas Cage did an exceptionally pretty good job as Dracula. Next up, Awkwafina plays Rebecca, an aggressive traffic cop working for the New Orleans Police Department. Ben Schwartz plays Lobo, Tedward Lobo. the son of the the matriarch mob boss, Bella Francesca, played by Shohreh Aghdashloo. Brandon Scott Jones plays a support group leader named Mark, and Adrian Martinez plays Rebecca's co-worker, Chris. There's lots of other people you may be familiar, well, that you may or may not be familiar with. Now, one of them I just found out was in there was Caroline Williams, who plays the character Vanessa. I think a lot of you horror fanatics have remember this person. You've seen her in movies like The Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 2 and Leprechaun 3 and Stepfather 2. Oh, the list goes on. Yeah, I almost didn't see her until I just saw her name, so I didn't see her. If I rewatch this, I'll probably encounter her, but I don't know. But anyway, so the cast isn't too bad. Now, I do agree with critics praising with the performances. So the performances from the cast was really good. And I like the comedic tone. This did have a few funny moments and what have you. But I think some of the coolest things here was the bloody, gory, violent scenes, action type scenes. This kind of did have a little bit of action, what have you. Still, I have to say it wasn't too bad. Now for some reviews, according to Rotten Tomatoes, who has it at 58%, says that although it fails to take full advantage of its committed stars and killer premise, the film's baddie horror comedy blend sinks in just enough to leave an impression. Definitely, I do agree. The Daily Telegraph says it fulfills the basic requirements of a beat-em-up formula established by Buffy and Blade, but that's it. To get any further, we'd have wanted a real sharpening of the emotional stakes. Yes. And the Wall Street Journal says the small gags are great and the overall story arc is weak, particularly a quasi-romantic subplot where a cop challenges Renfield to turn from heel to hero. That's all I'm going to tell you, but anywho, I will say it wasn't too bad. Sure, the story could have just used a little bit of a few touches and what have you. But overall, I still think it did okay, but it didn't do great. It only went on to make $26 million worldwide. It did well. Well, it made $17 million in the U.S. and Canada, but only $9 million overseas. So anyway, I think Renfield was not too bad. It did have some fun moments. It does have some pretty bloody, gory, horror violent scenes and what have you, and a pretty good cast. It's just that the story could have just been a wee bit, well, but it was okay though. So overall, I think Renfield was pretty good. I think you should check out if you're into Dracula, or if you want a pretty big, intense type vampire flick with a little humor, then I'd say this would be right up your alley. For my score, I'm going to give Renfield 4 stars. On a scale of 1 to 10, I'm going to give it an 8.5. So what did you think of Renfield? Let me know in the comments section below. If you like this video, click the like button, subscribe, and be a part of the Big D Nation. Join me next time for my sport. Well, not sport. I was going to give a sport. I'm not going to give you another. Next time, it's my Saturday morning TV log on Sky Surfer Strike Force. So if you enjoyed this, check out my reviews for these other recent horror films Universal put out this year. In the upper left-hand corner is my review of one of my favorite films of this year, Megan. Or go to the upper right-hand corner and see my mini reviews vid on Cabin in the Wood. No, not Cabin in the Woods. I mean, Knock at the Cabin. Sorry, wrong movie. Not my mini reviews on Knock at the Cabin and Cocaine Bear. Or if you'd like, go to the bottom left-hand corner and see my review of the original Dracula. And the bottom right hand corner is the button you can click to subscribe. If you like rankings and reviews on movies, TV, music, video games, etc., then I'm your guy. Thank you for watching. Until next time, I'm the Big D saying see ya.